Hey, healthy runners, it is Monday night, which means it's Monday Night Spark. In tonight's episode, we are going to be talking about how to strengthen your muscles to train to run. So have you been frustrated in the past that you've taken up running or you started a new training cycle and you just get injured and have to stop? In tonight's live, we're going to be talking about the first principle that I talked about last week in training to run and how to be active, how to be able to run without injuries, how to get stronger. We kind of talked about the foundation and the 5 principles. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into strength training in order to run. All right, I am super pumped to be back. I just got back in town today. So flight landed back in CT. I'm out of the 85-degree Florida weather. If you guys are hopping on here on the live, just type in live. And if you're watching this on the replay, type in replay. So I know you caught this and I'll be able to give you a little shout out. So I'm just coming back from Run Disney. It was my first Run Disney experience. For those of you that have been following along, I thank each and every one of you for your positive comments. It made a significant impact on my wife and all of your kind of positive comments prior to the race. I know that definitely helped her out, as well as kind of that post-race feeling. If you guys all remember your first half marathon, how accomplished you felt, that you were able to accomplish something that you thought you'd never be able to do, because she thought she was never able to be able to run. She, to this day, still doesn't call herself a runner, which I think is very interesting, the psychology of that, by the way. Maybe one other day we'll kind of touch upon that. Maybe Irene will be able to help us out with that topic, but the psychology of like, you're a runner or you're not a runner. And I think a lot of us think to ourselves, and we don't say that we're a runner because we have all these high expectations. If we didn't run a marathon, then we're not a runner. If we didn't run a half marathon, then we're not a runner. If we don't have under a 10-minute pace, right? So we put all these like kind of high expectations on ourselves, and we're never kind of happy or give ourselves enough credit, because there are so many of you that I come into contact with, and it's very interesting. But that's a different topic for a different day. Going back to Run Disney, it was an amazing experience for those who have not experienced it yet. It's totally different than any other road race I've ever done before. So it was my 21st half marathon to run, and it was completely different than any other half. It was fun. It was definitely something that I would recommend you experience at least once. So it was a totally different experience. I try to give you a little flavor of it going live when we were in Magic Kingdom there in the castle. But one thing that, and it's very poignant for tonight's episode, because I have never seen so many injured runners running a race before. It was very like disheartening to me, because as you guys know, my passion is really to be able to help you guys as runners stay healthy. And that was the whole purpose of creating this group. And I saw so many runners who weren't obviously implementing the principles that we talked about in our foundational kind of episode last week. And I could see it out on the course, and I can see it, you know, people are struggling at mile 2, and they're putting like icy hot on and Ben Gay. And I've never seen so many runners after a race putting on ice. So that was a little disheartening to me, because I feel like there's a lot of information that's not getting put out there. So again, my mission is to be able to help as many runners as possible be able to run and be active, stay healthy, and not get injured. So if you have a runner friend of yours who needs to be hearing tonight's episode, please share it out. Please tag them in the comment box. I would greatly appreciate it, because I want to be able to help more runners out there learn some of this information they're just not getting. All right. So thank you guys for jumping on here. Bianca, what's going on? Thanks for jumping on. Thanks for welcoming me back. I am standing right now. If you haven't noticed, I'm going to probably be moving around a lot, because my back does not do good with prolonged sitting, especially on a flight. So if you guys ever had back pain with sitting on a flight, just type in back pain into the comment box, because that is something that I continually struggle with. However, there are some simple extension-based exercises that you can be doing, and that helps me out tremendously, as well as standing as much as possible. So I do have a standing desk in my office, so I constantly am standing while I'm typing, and now I'm going to be doing this live standing. So Lori, thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Candace is here. Jill's here. Emmett, what's going on? We got a little date night, Monday night spark live. I like it. I like it. Hey guys, good to see you. All right, so let's get into, and oh, the other thing is I definitely have to share with you my wife's story on running her first half marathon, because I think many of you can benefit from some of the tips and the things that she's told me along the way while she was training, as well as the end result. So there's some good actionable tips. So I'm going to bribe her to get on and do a live, share her story, because I think it can help some of you out there who are saying to yourself the same thing she was saying to herself, that she's not a runner and she would never ever run a half marathon, and she would never be able to run a half marathon because she would have pain, and she would have ankle pain, and she was battling hamstring pain in the beginning. So we will get that story to you hopefully this week while it's fresh in her head. I'm going to share that with you guys. So let's get into tonight's topic, guys. Strength training. How do we know the big principle is you need to train in order to run, right? We're not just going to go out there and run as our form of exercise. You need to actually do exercises and train your muscles in order to be able to run and be healthy, so you can hit those race goals. We got some big goals coming up in the spring, and that's what my goal is to help you with. So why should we be training and doing specific strengthening exercises or strength training if you are a runner? Two main reasons. First is prevent injuries. And that's where I'm going to be coming from a lot tonight, is because of all the injured runners that I do see and how we treat those injuries and get them better. And then the follow-up of when I talk to a runner months down the road, years down the road, and their pain does not come back. And this, by the way, guys, too, this is something that, like, if you've had an injury, like I've had it myself. So remember, I'm an adult onset runner. I've been running for 8 years now, and I pretty much have had every injury that we've talked about in our previous lives, and a lot of the injuries that you guys are battling with. So I've been there before. I know what you're feeling. I've gone through it myself and the recovery, as well as help many other runners. So this is not like theoretical, but this is practical, as well as blending in the research that's out there, the new research that comes out for running related injuries. So that's kind of the big thing, is prevention of injuries. That's why we want to strengthen our muscles and strengthen ourselves in order to prevent injuries. Number two is improve performance. The stronger you are as a runner, the better performance. So either you're going to be able to run longer, so running that first half marathon like my wife, or running your first full marathon next fall, or be able to run faster. So you want to get a PR, you want to run faster. I know everyone's got PR goals and you want to get faster. In order to run faster, you have to have stronger muscles. And specifically for you as a runner, you want to develop this strength for endurance as opposed to like strength for power. So like a power lifter who's going to do 1 rep and do an overhead press is going to be different for you as a runner, and the strength and endurance you need in your muscles. So one of the big things is we don't want to just, as I said before, run in order to get stronger as a runner. Because what happens for you novice runners who just start running is your body goes through some adaptations. There's a couple adaptations. Definitely the biggest one that you're going to find initially is cardiovascular benefit, right? So your cardiovascular system, your heart, your respiratory system, your breathing, your lungs, you start to see changes, adaptations, benefits. So maybe your resting heart rate is a little bit lower, right? So I think everyone's familiar with those benefits. You will also get a little strength benefit for your running muscles, right? So you will get a little stronger and your muscles will get more firm, and they're going to get a little toned up in your legs, right? Those are going to be initial benefits. However, if you only run and you don't do any strength training, then you're going to eventually just level off because you're not adding the stimulus into those muscles in order to get stronger and develop that strength for endurance that you need as a runner to prevent injuries and improve performance. So I hope that makes sense and is kind of the rationale to why you should add strength training in as a runner. If that makes sense, please tell me it makes sense. If you have a question, guys, by the way, I love your questions. Please drop a question into the comment box. I love answering them and being able to kind of interact with you, so this isn't just a one-way forum. Claudia, thank you for jumping on here. Mia, good to see you. Thank you for jumping on. And Lisa, thank you for jumping on as well. So Lori does say that she wants to run without pain and not worry that she's going to hurt herself again. All right, Lori, so that is a common problem that I see, and is a common, I think, stress point for many runners. And sometimes I find that that affects training, that people aren't increasing the mileage as they should because they're fearful of suffering that injury again. And hopefully today's tips and the exercises, the muscles that we're going to be talking about, Lori, are going to actually prevent that pain from coming back. And I believe it was you. I think we had talked about this in the past. I want to say it was hamstring related. So when we get to the glutes, definitely pay attention to that part. So guys, drop questions in there. Bill, good to see you. Thank you for jumping on here, buddy. Let's get into the muscles that we do want to strengthen. So we talked about the benefits of strengthen, prevent injuries, improve performance. So what are the 5 key muscles that I mentioned last week? Let's get into each of those muscles. These muscles, by the way, are not your quote unquote gym muscles or your beach muscles, right? So if anyone thinks back to when they first hit the gym, probably many years ago, I know when I first started working out in college, it was all about the beach muscles, right? We did lots of sets, lots of reps. For your biceps, we did like bicep curls till like the cows came home. We did like bench press every single incline, decline, flat. We did barbell, we did dumbbell, we did like every variation of a chest press or a bench press. Now those muscles are not going to help you prevent injuries or improve performance as a runner. So that's first and foremost. A total body approach is a good thing that will help improve your metabolism and make you more stronger overall from a health standpoint. However, they're not going to improve your running specific injury needs as well as performance needs. So the 5 key muscles that I am going to be focusing on tonight and that I want to make sure you are strengthening are, number 1, the glutes. So the glutes, right? Everyone knows the glutes, the big glute max in the back here, your backside. That's the biggest muscle that we have in our bodies. It is the most powerful. So your glutes are super important, especially if you are a runner who has had a history of back pain or hamstring pain. So that top of the hamstring pain that you get when you're sitting, the top of that area, if you have pain there, a lot of times I find that the hamstrings are dominant, meaning you use your hamstrings a lot and you're not turning on your glutes. So re-educating, turning on those glutes is a very important thing to heal from injury, and then making sure you're strengthening your glutes is important going forward from a injury prevention maintenance standpoint. So what are some exercises that you can do? First off, guys, if you feel like this is you and you've had chronic hamstring issues or you've had back pain and you're not really doing any glute specific exercises, first thing that I highly recommend is you turn them on or isolate those muscles, figure out how to actually contract those muscles, because when you're doing your leg press in the gym, when you're doing your seated knee extensions and your hamstring curls, you're not using your glutes at all. When you're doing some of your other muscle exercises, you're probably not fully actually contracting that muscle and you're dominant with your hamstrings. So how do you get the signals from your brain, send them to the glutes to be able to contract? I have a series of exercises that I put together that has worked really well with the runners that I help. And if you want that series of exercise, I'll be happy to drop that link in the comment box. So just put on in the comment box, glute activation exercise. And I will just drop that link for you. It's a series of 5 exercises that has helped out tremendously. And again, the key to these exercises, guys, they don't look very hard, but they're hard because you need to actually concentrate when you're doing them to feel a good burn in your glutes. And if you don't feel that burn in your glutes, you're not doing it properly. So it's a matter of turning them on, activating them, and then strengthening from there, adding load. So then adding your lunges, reverse lunges, any exercise that has you go deeper, so is more hip dominant that we say. So such as if you even did a stiff-legged deadlift, so if you were coming here or doing like a deadlift, picking up bar from the floor, or if you're doing a deeper lunge or a deeper squat, those are all hip dominant exercises, meaning your hip muscles actually work more. So that would actually work your glutes because your glutes work from your hip joint. All right, so I hope that makes sense. And that is why you should be contracting and activating your glutes when you are training in order to run. All right, so the glutes are first and foremost. Very important exercise, very important muscle. Lori, Crystal, thank you for commenting. I will get you that link at the end of this. I do have to pick up my daughter from gymnastics, but then when I get home after that, I will drop that link in the comment box for you guys. All right, so muscle number 2, another important one. Again, guys, these aren't in order, but I did put the hip ones first because I find that is something common that's lacking in a lot of runners' training is hip-specific strengthening. So the hip abductors, or your gluteus medius muscle, is on the side, and that contracts to keep your pelvis level. Every time you're standing on one leg as a runner, your gluteus medius is contracting. Again, if you're only doing exercise in one plane, like the knee extension, the knee curl machine in the gym, you may be doing the seated abductor exercise in outer thighs. That is your abductor muscle. However, because of the hip position, when you're sitting, your hip is flexed, and you're going out to the side with your hip flexed. That is an issue because you're actually activating more your TFL muscle in the front of your hip. So that's the muscle that connects to your IT band. So those of you who have that chronic IT band syndrome and you're getting a lot of that pain, chances are you're dominant in your TFL muscle and you're not activating the gluteus medius muscle on the side and toward the back part where it connects to your glute max, the muscle I just talked about. Actually, you know what? I got my little muscle guy here. So why don't I show you a little illustration of this is the side of your leg. Your gluteus medius is fan-shaped muscle, comes on the side of your hip. So that's the muscle that keeps your pelvis level when you're contracting. That muscle kicks your leg out to the side. All right, so that actually raises your leg up. And the first exercise I would recommend is activating it just like we did the glutes. And that's the exercise I like to call the humbler because it actually looks very easy, but it's very hard, is to go against the wall and to actually slide your leg up the wall, heel on the wall, sliding your leg up the wall, and then bringing it down. Sliding it up the wall, bringing it down. Hip is away from the wall slightly, heel is on the wall, and slide that leg up, and then slowly lower it down. You will feel a nice burn on the side of your hip area. That's your gluteus medius muscle. I call that the humbler because you can take someone who thinks they're the strongest person out there, and they do that exercise, and they're humbled by that exercise. So that's your gluteus medius muscle. Make sure you're working that. Other nice exercise progressions is using a little mini band. I like to use my little Spark mini band and to do some sidestepping, or if you've seen like a crab exercise, kind of sidestepping, that's another way you can work your gluteus medius muscle. All right, guys, so let's get to exercise number 3. Exercise number 3 is going to be the deep hip rotators, your external rotators. So these are the guys deep in your butt area. Actually, by this model here, it is right here. It's a muscle that connects to this bone and goes deep under the glute max. So that first muscle I talked about, if we took that muscle off, deep in your butt is your hip external rotator muscles. The main one, the bigger one, is the piriformis muscle. So I'm sure you've maybe heard about the piriformis muscle. This muscle is going to be key if you get front of the kneecap pain, patellofemoral pain syndrome, as well as shin splints, as well as posterior tibial tendonitis. So ankle tendonitis on the inside part of your ankle, and honestly, even plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendinopathy. So any Achilles tendonitis issues, this muscle is very important because this is your anti-pronation muscle. So remember, when your foot goes flat, and it flattens out when you run, especially for those that have super flat arches, or you overpronate a lot, you have excessive pronation, maybe you've been told to use a motion stability shoe in the past, or a stability shoe, or an orthotic. So if you have been told that in the past, then chances are you would benefit from strengthening your hip external rotators to actually use your muscles to prevent that excessive motion that's putting stress down lower in the chain. So that's your hip external rotators. There are some great exercises that you can do. Hip activation wise, the clamshell. Lying on your side, opening up, clamshell, add a little resistance band. Make sure you don't add the band too fast. A lot of times I see people jump to the band when they're not actually activating the muscle correctly. So you want to make sure you're activating, turning that muscle on, then progress your resistance, add the resistance band, and then you can do some standing progressions. I'm going to save that for a later live when we talked about our standing specific exercises. I think that will be helpful at that point. All right, guys, if this is making some sense to you, please let me know. So Lisa says, congrats to you and your wife on Disney. I have a 13.1 charm for her, courtesy of Lift Your Soul. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. That's great. I love, for those of you that don't know, Lisa has a bunch of awesome running jewelry, different sayings, different stickers, motivational things. So check that out, Lift Your Soul. It's some good stuff to lift up your soul. I like the pun intended there. So thank you so much, Lisa. That's awesome. I know she would appreciate that greatly. And I don't know if I did show you guys in the beginning of the slide, but I do have the official Marathon Weekend 2020 mug. So I was just drinking my tea out of that. That was pretty cool. And the medals are very nice at Disney. Very heavy, very quality medals, and I'm sure that's all included in the price, of course, as well as the shirts were very neat as well. All right, so let's get to our fourth muscle. Fourth muscle is going to be the quads. The quad muscle is going to be on the front of your thigh. I think you guys know where your quads are probably by now. Front of your thigh muscle, there's four muscles. That's why it's called the quads. So there's the vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, which is underneath, and then the rectus muscle, which goes over that. And that is actually a two-joint muscle. Your rectus femoris is actually a hip flexor as well as a knee extensor. So that muscle a lot of times can be short and tight, and commonly I will have runners roll that muscle as well as stretch the rectus. But today we're talking about strengthening. So let's get to strengthening the quads. Why is it important? For tracking of your kneecap. So again, if you are someone who has had patellofemoral pain and issues with your kneecap with tracking, then strengthening your quads can improve tracking as well as improve your performance. Let's be honest here. So the stronger your quads are, especially thinking about uphill running or downhill running. So this was actually good too, because if you guys remember, like whenever you have done your first long race and you get that delayed onset muscle soreness, peaks 24 to 48 hours after your race. My wife going downstairs, I know everyone's been there before, right? Have you been there before where you go downstairs, you're like, oh, and you feel that quad muscle. You know where your quads are. They're in the front of your thigh because your quads are controlling yourself as you go down. So when you do downhill running and you are doing some hills and you're going downhill, your quads are contracting a lot. And that is why you as a runner should definitely improve your turnover time as you're going downhill to minimize and not fight the hill, kind of go with the hill. So you're not having to use that rapid quad contraction. A lot of people have done Boston. I know can speak to that. I've never done Boston, but I hear that the downhill running, you really need to train your quads to be able to tolerate that. So kind of quad strengthening, not just running hills in of itself, but also strengthening your quad muscles would be important, especially those that are considering doing a hilly race, such as Boston. So let's get, so Sundar says, clamshell, he loves it. Yeah, the clams or the clamshell, you're on your side, you're opening up. So Stephanie is here on the live. Thank you so much for joining, Stephanie. Appreciate you tuning in. And last muscle, last running specific muscle that is going to help you stay injury-free and also improve your performance is your calf muscle. So your calf muscles on the back of your calf, very, very important because they connect to your Achilles tendon. So those of you who have Achilles tendonitis, those of you with plantar fasciitis on the bottom of your foot, a lot of runners I see do not have the endurance of their calf muscle, meaning you as a runner should be able to perform 25 single leg calf raises up and down, nice and slow, 25 times, keeping your knee straight. If you don't have the endurance of that muscle, then that could lead to compensations and usually more stress to the Achilles and the plantar fascia. So you want to think about doing some calf raises, even though it seems so easy and silly, but if you test yourself, see if you can do 25 calf raises. If you can't, you need to work on the endurance of that. So you don't need a fancy machine to do that. You literally just use your body weight as resistance, and then you can progress even flat floor, then off the edge of a step would be a nice progression. And then you could add resistance by either holding a kettlebell, holding a dumbbell, or doing it in a machine at the gym, adding with the plates, and you do the calf raises, or even under a Smith machine, if you guys know what those are, with the barbell, add the plates on the side, you could stand on the step and do resistance of the Smith machine. But definitely working the strength of that calf muscle, but also the endurance is going to be very important. So we have a question here. Sundar says, what's your take on weight training? I have read in various forums that runners after 40 should start lifting in order to prevent injuries. Absolutely. So very, very good point there, Sundar, especially as we age. So what do we know with the biology of aging is that as we age, we do tend to lose muscle. So losing muscle has been actually associated with a lot of the comorbidities and kind of decline in the elderly population. And there's actually a big push in the profession, the medical professions now, especially PT. And I wouldn't say a big push, but it's more of the recent push is to actually strength train for the elderly, because the old philosophy was you don't want to do strength training, you don't want to lift weights because they're going to get hurt. But now we know actually that the negative consequences of not building muscle as we age is far greater than anything that you can get hurt lifting a weight. So if you do it progressively, safely, then that's going to benefit not only your muscle, but also your bone. And then think about us as runners, right? I'm sure everyone has heard of a runner who's had a stress fracture before, right? So if you've had any broken bones in your history, if you've ever fell, broke a bone, broken multiple bones, if you're postmenopausal, female, and you might have some low bone density. So if you have a little osteopenia, or if, even the extreme, you have osteoporosis, then strength training is essential for you as a runner to help build up, or honestly prevent the decline in bone density as we age. So as we age, those things will get weaker, and that leads to fractures. So if you want to look at bone health as well as muscle health, that's where strength training really comes in, Sundar. So again, like everyone thinks of running as it's a cardiovascular type activity, where yes, it's great for your heart, right? It's great for your cardiovascular system. If you have high blood pressure, if you have a history of family-related cardiac disease, I know I do, all the males on my mom's side of the family, very big cardiac history. So like, I love that I'm staying healthy, and I've exercised since I was a kid and into college, and, took up running because that's hopefully going to help prevent me from suffering one of those cardiac issues later in my life. But those are the two big things for muscle health, bone health. Absolutely should be strength training as a runner. The things that I talked about today, guys, are really to teach you what muscles that you're probably not using in the gym. And these are your kind of running specific muscles. All right. Sundar brings up a good point, because we also need to strength train and add load. So that's something that's a little bit beyond the scope of tonight's live, is to start to add load, and don't be afraid to add load. I'm a firm believer that you need to activate the muscle first, meaning you need to send the signals from your brain to the muscles, learn how to contract them. When you contract them, you feel them working. So you're using the right muscle. That's essential first and foremost, and then you need to start adding load, meaning weight. So whether it's your free weights, you're using a barbell, adding plates, you're using a kettlebell, you're using a dumbbell, you're using a machine to add resistance, that's when you need to add the resistance in order to actually have the muscle adapt and get stronger, as well as get muscle hypertrophy. So your muscles get bigger. That's how you need to add that stress and load in order for that muscle to actually adapt and grow. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Julie, thank you so much for jumping on here. Good to see you. I hope your boy is doing good. All right, so I think those are really the 5 tips. I wanted to kind of keep this one. I got to wrap this up, guys. I got to go pick up my daughter, and I don't want to be that parent, who just leaves their kid, the last kid, to be picked up. So if anything that I kind of talked about tonight resonated with you, please hit that like, hit the love button. It will just help this video get out to more runners so we can help prevent injuries and we can improve performance. So just kind of recapping, the 5 muscles we talked about today were the glute max, right? We want to make sure we're doing some strengthening for that, especially if you have back pain or hamstring pain. Then we talked about the hip abductors or your gluteus medius muscle. Think about that, especially if you've had knee pain or outside of the hip pain, lateral hip pain. If you've been told you have trochanteric bursitis, very common, middle-aged females tend to get that condition, pain on the outside of your hip. You need to strengthen that gluteus medius muscle when you are running. Your hip external rotators, we talked about the importance of that, especially if you're an overpronator. So your feet go in, your arches collapse, you've had that motion control shoe or that stability shoe in the past, then you want to make sure that you're using that clamshell exercise, right? Or you're doing some standing progressions, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in depth when we do our standing live. And then we also talked about the quads being important as well as the calves. So those are your 5 running specific muscles that are going to help you get stronger as a runner to prevent injury and improve performance. All right, so remember, this is in the context of you training in order to run. So remember the other principles that we talked about. This is like the first principle, strengthening. Next week, we're going to get into jump training and plyometrics. So I'm excited about that one because we haven't done a live on that yet. So I'm kind of pumped about that one because I think that's something that's really lacking in a lot of runners' programs is jump training or plyometric training. Then we're going to be talking about, in 2 weeks from now, single leg exercises. So standing on one leg and doing single leg specific exercises. Then 4th principle we talked about last week's live is routine self-mobility care or soft tissue care. And then the 5th principle for you to stay healthy as a runner and hit those race goals is being consistent and training smarter with proper progression in your training. So that's going to be our 5th live topic. We're really kind of doing a deep dive. Each of these first 5 weeks, kind of what was set, we kind of set the table last week, and then we're going to get into those topics as we go. So as always, feel free to drop questions in along the way. Drop any questions. If you have anything about tonight's live, you have a question, trust me, no question is dumb. There's probably someone else who's thinking the same exact thing as you. Drop it in. I will be happy to answer it. All right. So thank you all for tuning in to tonight's live. I greatly appreciate you guys that you're tuning in every Monday night. Think about us, 8 p.m. We go live to share a topic to help you be able to hit your running related goals. I hope everyone has an awesome week. I heard the weather was awesome here this past weekend. It was 85 where I was, but I heard you guys were really warm as well. So hopefully we can keep a little bit of that warmer weather going forward. Until next time, guys, have a great night. Bye.